Joining us here at Post 9 is Joseph Stiglitz, former World Bank chief economist, Nobel Prize winner, author of People, Power, and Profits, Progressive Capitalism for an Age of Discontent. Should also mention former White House chief economist. Welcome back. Nice to see you here. So you timed this very well because this is what Democrats are talking about. When you say progressive capitalism, is that the same thing that Bernie Sanders is talking about and Elizabeth Warren and AOC and all the other?
In many ways it is, but it's trying to balance it. It says you have to have the market there. That's going to be the center of our economy. But you also have to make sure that the market serves society. And it hasn't been doing that as well as it could be. So that's exactly what progressive capitalism. It isn't throwing out capitalism, but it's trying to make sure that capitalism actually works the way it's supposed to and serves society.
So given that that's your response to that question, do you think the label socialist is being used too liberally on people like AOC and Bernie Sanders? Or are they embracing, are they failing with their own PR by allowing it to be applied?
Well, it's very interesting. Those of us who grew up in the Cold War, communism, socialism had a certain ring to it. Mm-hmm. But these younger people, AOC, were born after the end of the, after the Berlin Wall fell. And it doesn't have those same connotations. And what they're saying is, here are the things we want. We think everybody should have the right to health insurance. Everybody should have the education that lives up to their, enables them to live up to their opportunity. They should have a reasonable retirement. And if you ask people, do they want those things? They say yes. Now, as you say, the question is, what do you call it? In Europe, they will call it a social democrat. Mm-hmm. Some in Europe will call it socialist. In France, they would use that term. Mm-hmm. We've got hung up a little bit about this battle with communism 70 years ago. It's all over, and they're saying, let's not fight a historical battle, let's go on. I prefer my own term just because let's not fight those battles over terminology, and let's go down to the policies. And the policies AOC talks about are the right policies. I mean,
let's start with maybe Medicare for all, because that's had a real impact on the healthcare stocks. They've gotten dragged down on this idea. Is that something realistic? Can we really afford such a thing?
Well, the way I emphasize it is to make sure that everybody has access to health insurance. And there are many ways to do it. Healthcare for, Medicare for all is one way. Another one is an expanded and improved Obamacare. What is clear, you asked the question of affordability, we spend in our mixed private system so much more than so many other countries and get much worse results. So reforms in our healthcare system would actually save us money and make us able to spend more on other things that we would like to have.
Joseph, I'm interested that you said just a moment ago that you feel that the policies articulated by the likes of AOC are the right ones. So MMT, for example.
Oh, I don't mean all the details. I don't,
You mean their intentions are the right
their
ones?
Their intentions, with what I mentioned, let's make sure everybody has health insurance. Let's make sure everybody can get an education up to their ability. Let's make sure everybody has a secure retirement. Mm-hmm. Those ambitions can be achieved, I think, within our pocketbook with the right policies.
Like what?
Well, I emphasize in my book something called the public option. So, I talk about in healthcare we should have had the public option so that the people today who have only one or two health insurance companies would at least have a public option.
But we can barely afford the Medicare system that we have right now.
But a public option would give people more choice. And because the public option in Medicare is actually more efficient, we'd actually save money. Let me give you another example. Retirement. The government Social Security retirement program has much lower administrative costs than a lot of the private companies. So giving people a choice, the public choice of investing more in Social Security if they want to, not forcing them. Mm-hmm. The basic view is by expanding choice, we will increase competition that will drive the private sector to provide better products rather than mortgages, the kind of mortgages that led to the financial crisis of 2008. having a little better mortgages that help people borrow at a lower interest rate and manage the risk of home ownership, the most important asset people have. Stay in their home when the economy goes up through its normal ups and downs.
Joseph, broadening it out, do you feel like the wealthy in society need to pay more? And if so, what is the way to achieve that?
Yeah, they definitely need to pay more. I mean, Warren Buffett put it very clear. Something was wrong with our tax system when one of the richest people in the country pays less tax as a percentage than his secretary. He got it right. There are many ways of doing it. Some of them, for instance, making people who earn capital gains pay the same rate as somebody who works for their living, closing some of the loopholes that we have that people in private equity take advantage of. Those kinds of things would raise actually trillions of dollars over 10 years. I actually think also that we need to have a more progressive tax system. We in a period of our fastest economic growth, we did have a more progressive tax system, and we could use that money. We did this on Eisenhower and a Republican. We used that money for a national education program, for a national highway infrastructure program, for national research. It's where we began our big research programs. And those were the periods of our fastest economic growth. So it's not an accident, I think, that when we had higher tax rates, more revenue going into these public investments, we actually had a higher growth rate.
Are you advising any of the Democratic presidential hopefuls?
I've talked to some of them, and I'm willing to talk to anybody that wants to listen.
Is there anyone that you think have policies and laid out plans that actually make economic sense?
Oh, I think a number of them do. This is early in the campaign. They're not putting together the whole agenda. They're raising ideas. Several of them have raised the ideas about that we've talked about. The need for more affordable education, the need for health insurance for all,
but
and
the
the need for more progressivity. Well, I think, right now, going to the details of is not what the country needs. It's really a debate about our values and the framework for getting that. One of the things that got Hillary in trouble, I think, is she had all those numbers costed down to the penny and said, go to my website and you'll see a 49-point program. It was very worked out, but it wasn't what motivated people. They want to know, what are you going to try to do?
Doesn't President Trump have that message when he says, look, I went after the unfair trade practices. I watched out for the little guy. I tried to save the coal industry. He can point to those same things that you're talking about.
And then we look at what it actually did in the tax bill that raised the taxes on a majority of those in the second, third, and fourth quintiles. That is to say, a majority of the middle class are facing higher taxes. And you know where all that tax money went? That the corporations got?
We cover it every day.
$1 trillion of share buybacks,
Joseph,
not in more investment.
Just quickly, what's your outlook on the U.S. economy next couple of years?
I think we're going to go through a rocky period. We're not going to go into recession probably, but I think we're going to be coming off of the sugar high, and that's what most, the IMF forecast, most of the other forecasts show a significant slowing down of economic growth. The Trump tax cut was designed to give us a sugar high, get people to spend a little bit more money.
They don't call it a sugar high.
But it wasn't designed for a long-term economic growth.
Well, it wasn't designed for that. The debate is still open as to whether it will lead to that, because the data most recently picked up on retail sales.
Oh, a little. There's always a little, but the overwhelming evidence is that within 18 months, we're going to see a significant slowdown in growth from the 3% at least that was promised.
We will have a look at that as and when it materializes. Joseph, great to see you as always.
Nice to be here.
Professor Stiglitz.